The world calls her a meme. The internet calls her a joke. But psychology calls her something far more dangerous. She enters a room not to join it, but to conquer it. The atmosphere shifts the moment she arrives. Her voice is sharp. Her tone is brittle. She speaks not to communicate, but to command. You have seen her. You have heard her. Maybe you have even been her target. A pattern of control wearing human skin. We laugh at the viral videos. The middle-aged woman screaming about a coffee order. The neighbor measuring grass with a ruler. The customer demanding to speak to the manager over a 50-cent coupon. But if you look closer, past the absurdity, past the haircut, past the entitlement, you will see a terrifying fragility. This is not about coffee. This is not about rules. This is about a profound psychological terror, the terror of being irrelevant. To understand the Karen, you must stop looking at her actions and start looking at her belief system. She is not born this way. She is manufactured. She is the product of a specific cultural assembly line, one that taught her that the world is a hierarchy, and that she belongs at the top. But now the world is changing. The hierarchy is flattening, and she is panicking. Her outbursts are not strength. They are the death throes of an identity that can no longer survive in reality. When she demands to see a manager, she is not asking for a resolution. She is asking for a ritual. A ritual where someone in authority validates her importance and punishes someone lower on the food chain for disrupting her comfort. It is a power play, pure and simple. Because in her mind, if she is not commanding, she is disappearing. And for a Karen, erasure is worse than death. How does a human being become this rigid? It often begins in childhood, but not with abuse in the traditional sense. It begins with overvaluation. Many Karens were raised in environments where performance was love. They were the golden children, daddy's little princess. The ones who were told they were special, not because of who they were, but because of how well they obeyed the rules. They learned early on that identity is transactional. If I am good, I am rewarded. If I am perfect, I am safe. If I follow the script, I get the applause. So they internalized the script. They became guardians of the status quo. They learned that there is a right way to do things and a wrong way. And anyone who deviates from the right way is not just annoying. They are immoral. This upbringing creates a mind that cannot handle ambiguity. It creates a binary worldview, us versus them, correct versus incorrect, civilized versus savage, and naturally, she always places herself on the side of the civilized, but then she grows up. And the real world doesn't play by those rules anymore. The barista doesn't care if she was the golden child. The clerk doesn't care about her status. The neighbor plays music because they enjoy it, not to spite her. But she cannot process this. To her, equality feels like oppression. When the world treats her like everyone else, she feels attacked. She feels cheated because she was promised a throne. And now she is standing in line like the rest of us. And that gap between who she thinks she is and who the world treats her as is where the rage comes from. Psychologists often link these behaviors to narcissism, but it is a specific kind, vulnerable narcissism. It isn't the loud chest-thumping arrogance of a dictator. It is a quieter, more corrosive belief. The belief that my suffering is unique, my needs are urgent, my discomfort is a national emergency. The Karen believes she is the main character of reality. Everyone else is just an NPC, a non-playable character, existing solely to serve her narrative. So when you mess up her order, you haven't just made a mistake. You have disrupted her story. And for that, you must be punished. But here is the paradox. The louder she shouts, the smaller she feels. True power doesn't need to announce itself. True authority doesn't need to speak to the manager. Her aggression is a confession of weakness. She screams because she suspects no one is listening. She demands respect because she fears she hasn't earned it. It is a self-reinforcing cycle of insecurity. Insecurity breeds control. Control breeds conflict. And conflict confirms her belief that the world is out to get her. It isn't sadness that drives her. It is resentment, and resentment is a poison. It curdles the soul. It turns empathy into judgment. It turns patience into bitterness. She looks at a changing world, at new pronouns, new customs, new voices rising up. And she doesn't see progress, she sees a personal insult. She sees a world that is rewriting the rules without her permission. And she hates it. Have you noticed that a Karen never gets angry in private? The meltdown is always public. it is always performative. She needs an audience, she needs witnesses. Because rage for her is a theater. She is performing the role of the victimized moral authority. Watch her body language, the pointing finger, the hands on hips, the phone camera pulled out as a weapon. She is not trying to de-escalate, she is trying to humiliate. She wants to shame you into submission, because shame is the tool that was used on her. And now she wields it against the world. She invokes the rules constantly. It's against policy, it's against the law, it's against the HOA guidelines. But she doesn't care about the law, she cares about leverage. She uses rules as a cudgel to beat people into obedience. But watch what happens when the rules apply to her. Suddenly they are unfair. Suddenly she is the exception. She wants the protection of the law without the constraint of it. She wants the privilege of the elite without the responsibility of the leader. This performative anger masks a deep loneliness. The Karen is often isolated. Her rigidity pushes people away. Her judgment kills intimacy. So she seeks connection through conflict. A fight is still an interaction. An argument is still attention. Even negative attention fills the void. So she goes out into the world looking for a fight. Because fighting makes her feel alive. It makes her feel real. It confirms that she still matters enough to be opposed. We cannot discuss the Karen without discussing race. It is the elephant in the room, and it is not incidental, it is structural. Many viral incidents involve white women weaponizing their tears against black people. This is a historical legacy playing out in modern times. She has inherited a belief, conscious or unconscious, that her comfort is more important than someone else's survival, that her fear justifies violence, that the police exist to serve her feelings, not justice. This is the dark side of the archetype, the belief that she is the default human and everyone else is a deviation. She patrols public spaces like she owns them. The park, the pool, the sidewalk. When she asks, "Do you live here?" she isn't asking for information. She is asserting dominance. She is saying this space belongs to people like me, not people like you. But the script has flipped. The weapon she relied on, social shame, has been turned against her. Now the camera is pointed at her face. Now the internet is judging her. Now the police might arrest her for filing a false report, and this terrifies her. The system that was designed to protect her archetype is beginning to crack, and she is watching her privilege dissolve in real time. This is why her reactions are becoming more extreme. She is like an animal backed into a corner, lashing out because she knows the walls are closing in. If you strip away the entitlement, what is left? A hollow shell. A false self constructed out of brittle ego. The Karen does not know who she is outside of her rank. If she isn't the customer who is always right, who is she? If she isn't the neighbor who enforces the rules, who is she? She has no internal anchor. Her self-worth is entirely external. It depends on how well others obey her. It depends on the cleanliness of her lawn. It depends on the promptness of her service. This is a miserable way to live. To be constantly at the mercy of your environment. To have your happiness dependent on the competence of a stranger. She cannot tolerate being wrong because her ego is too fragile to hold a mistake. To admit fault would be to shatter the glass house she lives in. So she doubles down. She lies. She gaslights. She rewrites history in her head until she is the victim. This is why you cannot reason with a Karen. Reason requires a shared reality, and she does not live in shared reality. She lives in a fantasy where she is the queen, and you are the peasant. And any evidence to the contrary is fake news. Her rigidity is a defense mechanism in a world moving towards complexity. She craves simplicity. She wants clear lines. She wants distinct roles. She wants a world that fits into a neat little box. But the world is messy. The world is chaotic. And her inability to adapt to that chaos is driving her mad. What happens when the illusion breaks? What happens when the manager says no? What happens when the police tell her to leave? What happens when the internet strips her of her anonymity? She collapses, and it is ugly. The tears come. But they are not tears of remorse. They are tears of frustration. They are the tears of a child who has been told no for the first time. She plays the victim card instantly. She claims she is being bullied. She claims she is afraid for her life. She weaponizes her fragility, hoping that someone will save her. But fewer people are coming to save her now. This moment of collapse is critical. It is the only moment where growth is possible. But sadly, most Karens miss it. Instead of looking inward, They look outward for someone to blame. They sue, they attack, they dig their heels in deeper. Because the alternative is too painful. The alternative is realizing that they have become the villain of their own story. To dismantle the Karen psychology, she would have to question everything: her upbringing, her bias, her privilege, her entire worldview, and that is a heavy lift. Most people would rather destroy the world around them than dismantle the world inside them. So she remains stuck, a relic of a bygone era, screaming at a future that has already arrived. We look at the Karen, and we judge her. And we should. Her behavior is destructive. But she is also a mirror. She reflects the darkest parts of our culture. The parts that value property over people, compliance over compassion, status over soul. She is a warning. A warning of what happens when you let your ego run the show. When you refuse to grow, when you choose comfort over truth. We are all capable of small acts of entitlement. We all have moments where we think we deserve more than the person next to us. The difference is awareness. The difference is the ability to catch yourself, to apologize, to step back. The Karen has lost that ability. She has severed the connection between her actions and her conscience. She is drifting in a sea of her own rage, anchored only by her grievances, and in the end, she punishes herself more than anyone else because she has to live in that mind. She has to live with that constant simmering anger. She has to live in a world that she believes is hostile to her. Imagine how exhausting that is, to wake up every day expecting a fight, to scan every room for an enemy, to never feel truly at peace because peace requires surrender. And she cannot surrender, so she will continue to scream. She will continue to demand. She will continue to call the manager. But the one person she really needs to speak to, the one manager who can actually fix the problem, is the one inside her own head. And that is the one conversation she is too terrified to have. She isn't running the world, she is running from herself. And no amount of shouting will ever silence the truth that is chasing her.